What's going on, everyone? Climate Data Report here with the Sunday weather forecast for Sunday, March 19th, 2023. Today we're going to take a look at the weather forecast from today through the end of this upcoming week. First off, starting off with the satellite infrared picture, and you can see here quiet conditions in the eastern half of the country. There are some snow showers coming off the Great Lakes, and temperatures are well below average. The West Coast, different story. We do have an active setup yet again, setting up for California, where there will be periods of rain and even mountain snow. You can see it here on the radar, which is overlaid with all the watches and warnings, and there's a pretty decent sized system coming into California, but this is the weaker system of the train of events that's going to be coming in. You can also see here on the radar picture the snow squalls and snow showers coming off of the Great Lakes. Taking a look at the National Hazards Map, freeze warnings are up for much of the South, which is going to result in crop damage. You have freeze warnings right on up to the Gulf Coast states, so this is pretty significant event. You also have a few red flag warnings up today for portions of Kansas and Nebraska, and even in New Jersey there's a red flag warnings up today as you have windy conditions over dry ground. Taking a look at the Storm Prediction Center, there is no threat of severe weather for today. There are chances of severe weather on Thursday and Friday. We'll talk about that in the longer range of the forecast. Now we get to this. There is a record to report on today. A record low temperature was set at Lake Yellowstone, Wyoming. A record low temperature of negative 22 degrees was set at Lake Yellowstone, Wyoming yesterday. This breaks the old record of 14 below zero set back in 2002. So that is a record that was completely smashed. Let's take a look at the RGM models, shall we? And this model is showing that not the first system, but the second system on the West Coast has actually trended a bit stronger. So this is some bad news for California. As you can see, rain and showers continue tonight into tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a little bit drier than today, but look what happens here. We're going to zoom this in to the West Coast view. You have this system that's off the California coast, and it actually gets significantly stronger as it tries to make landfall. It gets down to 988 millibars, and even 987 millibars, and you have a good amount of precipitation with this now. Look what happens in the mountains. You get very heavy rains and higher elevation, heavy snow, and this does become a long-term event. It actually slows down and stalls into Wednesday. Now, Wednesday's not going to be as wet as Tuesday, but look what happens here. Showers do continue. It's not a good situation, and look at precipitation amounts in the mountains. Yes, that's 6+ inches of liquid precipitation. And even right along the coast down by LA, you're now talking 2 to 3, maybe even isolated 4-inch amounts. And for the rest of California, or at least along the coast, upwards of 1 inch to localized 2 inches of precipitation. So this is not something that you need to see or hear about. And yeah, it's a threat that's going to happen now. Beyond the time frame where California sees its stormy weather through the first half of this week, we do have to watch what happens with this system. As you can see, it breaks up into multiple chunks of energy. And the first bit of energy does come across into the upper Midwest. And eventually, that is going to set up a boundary that is going to form generally from Illinois across Pennsylvania. There are questions as to whether it will set up north of the Mason-Dixon line or south of the Mason-Dixon line. If it sets up more south, that warm-up in the east will not get as far north. If it sets up more north, the warm-up will get into Pennsylvania. And there's questions on the model. As you can see here, we're coming into Thursday night. Here's that boundary. And I'll be fair, there's a lot of moisture that's going to be along this boundary. Not only does the GFS show this, the Canadian shows it, and the European. And you do have a severe weather threat along this boundary. So anyone who lives from Texas through Oklahoma, up and through Missouri, right on through to the Ohio Valley, I would pay close attention to this system because Texas, first of all, you're going to see the severe weather threat on Thursday here, according to the GFS model. And then that severe weather threat's not going to really shift too much on Friday. It may move a little bit, but on Friday, you're then going to see it spread up into the Tennessee Valley and even portions of Kentucky. Another threat is going to be the potential for flash flooding. There could be training segments along this boundary. If it should decide to move a little bit slower, the flash flood flood threat would go up. Right now, it's looking like it will probably exit the picture by Saturday. And on Saturday, you do have a severe weather threat across portions of Georgia, Alabama, right on up through to Tennessee Valley. But as we get closer to the coast, that severe weather threat will wash. And this system actually does try to transfer to some sort of a coastal system for New England. So New England, this could be a winter threat for you. Beyond this point, check this out. The GFS actually tries to show another system entering the picture that becomes a coastal system off the Delmarva and then comes up into the northeast. There's some discrepancy as to whether that will actually happen, because take a look here on the European, and I'm going to show you the other system as well. Here's the late week warm-up in the east. It does get to about as far as Pennsylvania, and then it kind of hits the brakes. You can see the boundary just stalls. The boundary comes across as a front initially, and then it tries to lift back northward, and look at all this precipitation that comes across with it. So the end of the week time frame, it's really a time that we're going to have to watch, generally from Texas on up through the Ohio Valley, anywhere where this boundary is going to be. There will definitely be a severe weather threat up to about Ohio, and there could be a few isolated tornadoes with this, though I think wind is going to be the main factor with this event. Beyond this point, here's what the European does for that potential second coastal system late next weekend. It's not really a big deal, doesn't have much moisture. It's really just a weak system on the European and exits the picture. I think the GFS is overdone because we've been seeing the GFS overdone on systems time and time again. Let's go back to the GFS though. We want to take a look at the GFS and see what it does for temperatures this week. So you can clearly see here, we're up to Wednesday, it's starting to finally moderate temperature-wise in the east. Here's the warm air building in Texas. As you get into Thursday, it does get a bit further north. And take a look. You can clearly see here where that boundary is. It does blow into Pennsylvania on the GFS. But north of that boundary, say north of the I-80 corridor, getting up into New York, look at this. You're seeing very cold temperatures. I mean, temperatures on Friday in New York State, upstate New York, New England, 30s to 40s at best. But you get south of there, and I'm going to zoom this in so you can see it a little bit better. You get south of there, look at this, 70 in Philadelphia, 60s across rest of Pennsylvania along the Turnpike corridor, and D.C., you're getting close to 80 degrees on GFS. Saturday, it tries to happen again, but honestly, it does not warm up again on Saturday. You have this flow that comes off the ocean, and that punctures in cooler air, generally anywhere northeast of Baltimore, because you have that coastal system that tries to get going over New England. As you can see here, it doesn't really form into a coastal until it gets north of Boston. You still have a primary low over upstate New York, and then it finally transfers off east of Maine. But just that whole pattern in general, it provides an east flow, so you don't get the warm-up again in the northeastern states, and that's why northeast of Baltimore, you get that marine layer that comes in, and as of right now, next Saturday is not looking like a pleasant day in the northeast. Alright, taking a look beyond this point at the 6 to 10 day outlook. Here's what we have. This is still yesterday's update. Okay, here we go, just updated. So today's update is now in, and they're showing above average temperatures in the east, but you can see they are showing on their map here the battle zone being right over Pennsylvania, where north of there it will be near normal temperatures, and the warm-up really stops right around the Allentown through Harrisburg area in Pennsylvania. Florida, well above average temperatures for you. But remember, the country is a seesaw, so the west coast is below average. And look here, well below average in California and Nevada. Let's take a look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, and I suspect that just updated as well. There you go. Above average temperatures in the south, near normal from about Texas on up through Pennsylvania, slightly below normal in northern New England, but for the west coast and the northern plains, below average temperatures continue, and that's going to be the theme, probably right into the first week of April. It's something we're going to have to watch. Taking a look at a 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, which is just updating as we're doing this video, and it does show above average precipitation in the east. Above average precipitation continues in California, and I'm in strong agreement with that because the second system that comes on Tuesday is unfortunately, again, it's looking stronger now. This is not the first time we've seen a system trend stronger as we get closer. So those higher precipitation amounts, it's going to aggravate the already oversaturated soil, the snowpack in the mountains. So flooding, yeah, it's going to happen again. We do have an area of below average precipitation in Texas, and that's not good because we know there's the ongoing drought problem in Texas. Finally, taking a look at the 8 to 14 day precip outlook, just slightly above average in the east. Below average continues in Texas, which, yeah, I do agree with that this time. The drought situation's not going to get better there anytime soon, and slightly above average precipitation in the West Coast, especially in California. All right, that does it for today's weather outlook. If you like this outlook, hit the like button down below. If you want to see tomorrow's weather forecast video or any future content we do on the channel, hit the subscribe button down below. Until next time, enjoy the weather wherever you are, and if you're in California dealing with those storm systems, stay safe.